Do you hate the thought of working past 55 or 60? Do you hate not being able to live the life you deserve today? Do you hate not knowing what your financial future looks like? It's time to stop doing what you hate. Here's your host, Mr. Harold Green.
Hello, everyone. This is Harold Green of Brightree Financial Group, and it is time to stop doing what you hate. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I'm doing pretty good. Looking forward to sharing a little bit with you folks about some things that have been going on with me, and then also to talk to you guys about today's show. And I think it's going to be a very interesting one because I'm going to kind of dig into something that is something you don't think about, but it's kind of like your financial operating system. And I'm not going to title the show that. The name of the show is going to be Your Philosophy of Wealth, or basically, what is your philosophy of wealth? Like, what do you live by? But before I get into it, I've just had a very interesting week. Had to do some traveling here and, took a business trip out to the Las Vegas area just to do some business out there, and very interesting. And I haven't been to Vegas in a long time. And because the last time I was there, I was only just kind of relegated to like the Strip and Top Golf. And, it was just all like right there. I never ventured out into the communities to see what was out there. But this time I had a little extra time. And so I did venture out and ventured out into the communities, went to some of the, the shops. And funny thing is it's kind of like Hawaii. There's a lot of Hawaii people out there in Las Vegas. As a matter of fact, they call Las Vegas the ninth island. And, once you get out into the community, you can kind of see why. But it was good. But the only thing I didn't like was the flight part about it. And so we had some delays on our flights and stuff. And as a matter of fact, the delays were so bad, it made us have to stay out there in Las Vegas for one more day. But then it was just a matter of perspective at that point. And I've always heard before, if you have problems that money can solve, then it's really not a problem, is it? There's a lot of problems that money can't solve, like say if you get an illness or something like that. But I want to talk to you folks about the philosophy of wealth, or what is your philosophy of wealth? So are you ready? All right, 1, 2, 3, let's get it. So everybody has a different way of thinking about money. I have my way of thinking about it. You have your way of thinking about it. You were raised with a certain mindset to think about it. And again, I'm going to put this out there. My intention is not to hurt anybody's feelings or to offend you or to piss you off or to make you mad or to make you hate me or make you angry at me for what I'm sharing with you. It's just a matter of me bringing some perspective to a topic and to a conversation that I think is going to enlighten you to think a little bit differently than you may already do. And so my goal is to help the middle class get from where they are today to where they really want to be. But like I said in one of my shows, sometimes people, they just don't want to go. But I want to start by saying, again, it is not my intention to piss you off or to hurt your feelings or anything like that. Also, I've done some reflection, when I was on this trip, and I began to think a little bit about some of the things I've been saying to my audience. And I appreciate everybody who tunes in and downloads the show and shares it with, friends and family and stuff like that. I really appreciate that. And sometimes it sounds like I'm coming off like the wrong way, but I'm going to take a step back. And here's what I'm going to do moving forward. What I realize is there's a way that you look at things. And so if I say something to you that maybe comes off the wrong way, I want you to take a little bit of a step back and say, okay, what does it mean by that? And also, I'm going to stop sounding like I'm telling you what to do, because it is not my goal to tell you what to do or to tell you how you should or how you should not think. The only thing I think I've been doing is basically sharing with my audience how certain thought processes and how certain ways of thinking about things can affect and have a negative impact on your finances. And so I want to get into the conversation about the philosophy of wealth. And everybody who's listening to the show, their goal is to increase their wealth by certain percentages. Sometimes they do things on their own. Maybe some clients, they have a business or you have a business. And then other times it's me trying to grow your portfolio and navigate the waters that are out there. And so there's different types of systems out there that you can use to generate wealth. And my goal is not to pit one against the other. And my goal is not to say my system is the best and don't deal with anybody else. But what I tend to find lately is there's a lot of selling going on out there. A lot of selling going on. everybody's trying to sell somebody something. And you're either buying something yourself or you're being sold something. And case in point, when I was on my trip, I walked into an establishment because I had to take care of some things. And so I knew what I needed to do there. But, this one person, they constantly tried to sell me on something. They tried to sell me. And it's kind of like, I can't be sold. Okay. You can't sell me anything that I don't already want. Why? Because when I go into a situation, I know exactly what I want out of that situation. No one has to sell me on why they think this is the best idea or that, the other, or whatever. I already know why, because I've done my research and I've done my due diligence. And so I really don't have time for someone to they think they're educating me, but they're really not. They're just wasting my time because if you got something that I want and I've researched it, I know you got it, I can either get it from you, I can go get it from over there, or I can get it from somewhere else. You narrow it down. It's like the process of elimination. It's the process of thinking ahead. It's the process of thinking about things a certain kind of way. And so my philosophy of wealth, like I said, is very differently than yours may be. Like, for example, I hate wasting time. I've sat down and I've done a time value of money type of thing where I know what my hourly is worth. I can take my annual income and divide it by the number of hours that I work. And it's a pretty interesting number. I'm not going to put it out there because some people may get offended by what I say. They may think, hey, you make too much. And some people might say, hey, that's all you make. So I'm not even going to get into that because everybody's perspective is very, very different. And so I'm going to start to keep a lot of stuff close to my chest because sometimes what I found is people can't handle stuff. You think they can handle things, but people can't handle stuff. And so you got to be careful what you put out there today, and you got to be careful who you put it out there to. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But basically, I've come into some situations recently, and they're happening more times than not, where a person's philosophy in regards to how they think about money has been either the main cause of their success or the main cause of their failure. And again, I'm not here to tell you how to think. I'm just here to share with you what my experiences are as an investment advisor, as a financial planner, as someone who's been in the insurance industry, dealing with annuities and insurances and different types of policies. And I've seen pretty much everything there is under the sun. And I've seen people trying to sell people everything, and it's not good for them. They're being sold versus them buying it. And so I think that's a very interesting thing. But more and more people are suffering today financially due to how they actually think about money in and of itself. Some people have an unhealthy relationship with their finances. And I'm going to do a show about, is it a mind situation or is it a money situation? And I'm still cooking this one a little bit because it's going to be a heavy duty one. And I'm going to have to bring in some experts. I'm going to have to bring in some heavy hitters that are qualified to talk about the psychological aspects of why people do certain things with their finances. And I think that's really going to help you to understand why you do the things that you do with your finances. And one of the things that's plaguing the middle class is the unsatiable feeling that they got to keep up. They got to keep up with what everybody else has, or they're going to get left behind. And there's an old term for that. And I forgot. It's keeping up with the Joneses or something like that. I don't know. On the plane, I was watching this movie about a man named Otto, or a man called Otto, or something like that. And it was a pretty interesting movie where part of the scene was, him buying a Ford versus a Chevy or something like that. Every time a new one come out, one get a new one, the other get a new one of the other. And so they were just back and forth until I think one day he bought the buddy bought a Toyota Celica or something. And his buddy just lost it. If you guys watch the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And he just lost it on him. He just walked away from him. And but anyway, I digress. But it's keeping up with everybody and making it like I gotta have what they have, or this is the best. I want the best for my kids, or, I want to give my kids the life that I never had. So I'm doing all of this. And so in my experience, that's one of the main things I see that keeps people back. It's how they view their money when it comes to their children. And this is a very, very, very touchy subject, because people have came to me and they said, hey, I have a kid that's, 5 years old, and I want to put them in private school from kindergarten. And I've had some clients that come to me and say, hey, I'm looking at private school, but I no way in hell I'm going to pay for a private school from kindergarten. It's not even worth it. So everyone has a different mindset of how they think about it. And so when you add it up, I said, okay, so private school from kindergarten, if you can afford it, is basically $30,000 a year, depending on the school you go. 10 years, you're already, $300,000 in. But if you can afford it, you can afford it. But if you can't afford it, but you're doing it because you think that's the best thing to do, you're giving your child the best, that's a whole different mindset. And no one's to tell you how you should or should not think about it. It's just that when you go through all of that, and here's what I've seen people say, okay, if I send them to private school, they'll be able to get scholarships and cover the cost of college. And so I don't really have to worry about paying for college. I don't think people believe that in and of itself. I think they're hopefully optimistic that their kid is going to be so smart coming out of private school that a lot of the top colleges want them. But sadly enough, I've seen the exact opposite, where, the colleges don't care what school you went to in some sense, as long as your parents can pay the tuition and they got a nice sized bank account. It doesn't matter where you come from. And, as long as you've got the grades or whatnot, they may give you a small scholarship, but a lot of times your parents are going to end up paying 60 to 70% of the cost of the college anyway. And if they can afford it, God bless them, that's great. But a lot of people are not in that same situation. And a lot of people are being led to believe that, hey, if we struggle and we just bite the bullet right now, our kid's going to get a full ride somewhere. A lot of times that's not necessarily true. However, it's just what that family has decided that they want to do. Now, the question becomes this: what's the end game to that, right? How is that going to impact you long term with your own personal finances, right? Are you going to be struggling down the road? Are you not being able to put away for retirement now because you're piling so much into the kids' education? Again, that's a philosophy. Some people have that philosophy where they say, I'm going to pay for my child's education, and because I don't want them to worry about that. I don't want them coming out of college with debt. That's kind of like your first class ticket. And I share this with people all the time. It's not about how much money you have, it's how you slice your pie. And I've met people who tell me, I would never buy a luxury car, Harold. I would never do that. That's fine. But if I buy one, that's for me. But you shouldn't judge me or criticize me for what I do and for what I have, because you don't know how hard I had to work for it, or no one knows how hard you had to work for what you have. Okay? Never count another person's, what's in their wallet. You got to pay attention and stay in your own lane for the most part. Believe in what you believe in and do what you think is right for you and your family. Okay? If you want a second opinion about that, you can always sit down and meet with someone and say, hey, what do you think about this? And that's totally okay. But you also have to, like I said, you look at how you slice your pie. I know people that pay $30, $40, $50, $60,000 a year for private school. That's what they do. They don't drive fancy cars because they're investing in a different area, right? That's not right or wrong. It's what that family has decided to do. I know people who say, I won't live in a gated community. I won't do all of that. I won't do this. I won't do that. I won't fly first class. I won't do this. I won't do that. It's a waste of money. You can't say something is a waste of money. You can't say that. You can say that for yourself, maybe. You can say, I wouldn't do that. I consider that a waste of money, but you should never judge anyone for doing what they want to do and how they want to live their life. People can look at you and say the same thing about what you're doing if they dig into your finances. They can consider what you're doing an absolute complete waste. And again, everyone has the way they want to think about things. Now, here's where this becomes problematic. It's when a person knows they really can't afford to do something, but they try to do it anyway, or they do it anyway, and it ends up being on the credit cards. You know you shouldn't do it, but you do it anyway, and it ends up on the credit cards. Again, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. However, if you're building up credit card debt that you can't pay off, the question you have to ask yourself is this: someday down the road, am I going to be okay if I continue doing the things I'm doing right now? If I continue overspending, if I continue stretching myself and going outside of my budgetary limits, and I'm not investing because I'm paying down debt. If I keep living like this, how am I going to end up 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road? What is my retirement situation going to look like? Am I going to be begging for bread? Am I going to be stuck living with my kids if they'll even have anything to do with me? Now, I know these are all things that a lot of you that are listening to me, you don't have to worry about these things because you're pretty good about how you manage your money. And if you're working with me, I know you're pretty good about how you manage your money. There may be some things here and there that you may want to clean up on your own. And you don't necessarily have to tell me about those things, but you know what those things are. But when it comes to your philosophy and how you think about wealth and how you think about money, it's a very interesting thing. Here's a couple of questions. Do you think having a lot of money is better than having a little money? I know it's a stupid question, but I've heard some people say, more money, more problems, more money, more problems, more money, more problems. So it's better not to have it. I heard that before. It's not more money, more problems. It's more money, more responsibilities, more money, more options, more money, more choices, more money, more of everything, more decisions you have to make because you have the ability to be able to afford things. And one of the things I told myself a long time ago, just because you can't afford to do something doesn't necessarily mean you should. You got to vet that thing out. Otherwise, it becomes like monopoly. And that's one of the things when you do come into wealth or you do become successful, you have to make sure that you're not treating your money like it's monopoly money. Roll the dice. It doesn't really work that way. You have to sit down and have a plan in regards to how you want your situation to look 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road. That's something that you would have to do. Here's some other philosophies. Like I'm not going to own a house. I'd rather just rent. I don't want the responsibility. That's a philosophy, and that's okay. The question you have to ask yourself is, am I okay when the owner sells and I got to get kicked out and I move somewhere else? Again, it's the philosophy of wealth. I'm not going to buy a new car. I never buy new cars. That's a philosophy of wealth. I don't lease cars. I'm never going to lease a car. I'm going to pay cash for it. That's a philosophy of wealth, right? And so, if you're buying used cars, you have to ask yourself, hey, look, if this thing breaks down on me, can I afford to fix it? Is it a hassle? Is it a waste of my time? Again, it's your philosophy of wealth. It is how you think about your money when it comes to investing. I don't like paying fees. I don't want to pay fees. Why do I need to pay fees to somebody when I can just park my money over here and then wait for the market to come back up? And then when it comes back up, I'm good because I didn't pay anybody any fees. Again, that's your philosophy. Some people say, I'd rather pay the fees because I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. Now, here's something interesting that I've seen. I don't remember clients leaving me when the stock market was great and their portfolios were skyrocketing. I don't really remember one person leaving. I just don't. But when the market goes bad, I've had several people quit on me and leave because they just couldn't stomach the volatility in the market. I've had people leave because they were told the world's going to come to an end. I've had people leave for a lot of different reasons. Again, maybe they had a change in their philosophy. When they came on board, they thought one way, but then they left because I think there had to be some kind of change in their philosophy. A lot of times they don't share this stuff with me. But one of the things I'll share with people is this. If somebody's trying to sell you something and sell you on a reason to quit what we're doing together, and if you buy it, you better sure hope that that person is right. You better sure hope that they are looking out for your long-term best interest. You better hope you're not being sold. You better hope that you're buying and you know exactly what you're buying. Never get involved in something that you don't understand. And sometimes people quit on me because they don't understand what I'm doing for them. They don't understand how the statements work. They don't know how to read the statements. I've heard all of these different things. Is it small? Is it large? Maybe, I don't know. It's up to that person to feel whichever kind of way they want to feel. But I always want to look out for people's long-term best interest. So when clients call me and they say, hey, here's what I'm thinking about doing. I heard this over here and this guy's, said this and that and the other. I say, well, great. Let's look at how that works because I have a good understanding about how a lot of things work. different life insurance policies. People come in and they say, I'm not ever buying whole life insurance. I'm only going to buy term and invest the rest of my money. Okay, that's a philosophy. How does that work? What are the responsibilities of that philosophy? If you're going to do that, okay, what happens when you don't invest well? What happens if you don't invest the money? What happens if you spend it, right? What do you have at the end of the day? A lot of people come in with that philosophy of buying term and investing the rest. A lot of people don't do it though, okay? Different types of whole life versus universal life versus all of this and that. I've seen people quit their whole life policy and buy cheaper policies, and they don't even ask, hey, what am I getting myself into? What happens is they were sold. It sounds good. What I'm sharing today is you really want to check your philosophy and what you believe about your money and make sure that you're able to live with the consequences of your philosophy. There is no such thing as a free lunch. Everyone has to pay. Whether you pay now or you pay later, you will have to pay for how you think. No one's absolved from the responsibility of their decisions. Even if someone bails you out today, chances are you're going to make a similar decision or a similar mistake. It's the same thing. You have to make sure you understand how your philosophy works. Now, a lot of times the philosophy is inherited. Well, I saw my dad and he was like this with his money, or I saw my mom and she was like this with her money. And sometimes people have a philosophy of we broke, we ain't got no money. It's just we ain't got no money. And sometimes you adopt a broken financial mentality and a broken financial philosophy where you're always counting the cost of something. And this is something that I talked to my wife about because she's our accountant, our controller, and she sees everything. And that's her job, is to put the cost or put the numbers in the right column. And I'll share this with you. I said, honey, you know what? I love you. However, I want you to look at this differently. Your job is just to put the numbers in the right column, not to question the cost itself, because that's what I do every day. My job is to look at this and say, hey, all right, am I making a wise decision financially? Yes. What are the benefits of this decision? Boom, boom, boom. I lay it all out 10 steps ahead. Boom, I go for it. Boom, done, done, done. There is no hemming and hawing. There is no negotiating. There is no back and forth because you're wasting time. That's my philosophy. I hate wasting time, so I will spend the money so I don't waste the time. I'll give you an example. Let's just say, and I'm just going to put this out there, and this is not my situation or anything like that. I'm just going to put this out there so that you can do the math yourself. Let's just say, all right, your hourly came in at, let's say you made $10,000 an hour. I don't know how you do it. Like maybe you're a TikTok or YouTube. So I don't know. Let's just say you made 10 grand an hour. Okay. And you have a choice of, let's say, A, you take a cheaper flight, and that flight is say it's a first class ticket, and you pay like $1,000 for the first class ticket, but you got to go from Chicago to like Tennessee on your way to like Miami, right? So for some reason you couldn't find a flight and you got like that cheaper ticket, like $1,000, but you had to stay at a layover in Tennessee for like say I don't know 4 hours, right? But it's not a big deal. And so finally you get to Miami and it takes you, I don't know, 10, 12 hours or whatever it might be. But on the other hand, what if you rented a private jet and you said, hey, all right, it's going to cost me $10,000 to rent this whole plane to go from, and that's pretty cheap. 10 grand from Chicago to Miami at 10 grand, that's pretty cheap. It's probably going to cost you more like 25, 30. But nevertheless, you would get there, and let's say it's super fast, an hour and a half, right? Just do the math. 4 hours or, I don't know, 13 hours because of layovers and all of that times 10. I mean, if you look at it, you could have been doing other stuff, and maybe your productivity level is not all that great, but maybe you could have made an extra 5 grand or maybe an extra 6 grand by just getting there faster and being creative and then just staying in your groove and staying in your flow. Again, what's the difference? It's a philosophy of wealth. Somebody might be okay paying that $1,000 and waiting because they're like, oh, shoot, man, I'm not paying 25 grand. It's not worth it. It's all about how you slice your pie and your philosophy of wealth. And so never look at someone and say, your philosophy is wrong, or, that philosophy is wrong, but just have your own. And then, work with people that align with your philosophy of wealth. And if you're working with someone who doesn't align with their philosophy of wealth, it's going to be painful. You're going to get mad at them. They're going to get mad at you. And it's not a match made in heaven. So you really have to understand what it is that you're doing. Does your advisor think the way you do? Does your advisor have wants the best for your future? And here's something I'm going to say about that. Sometimes people, they can't wait. A lot of times people can't wait until the market turns around, so they bail. Sometimes when the market is going down, that's the time to buy more. But a lot of times it's contrary. People don't do that. People bail out at the wrong time instead of adding in more. So when the market is down, that's depending on the stock, you want that at a discount. Now, again, there is no guarantee. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Okay. You got to do your due diligence because all investments do carry risk of loss. You do have to go sit down with your investment professional, get your risk score, do a risk analysis, and understand what your risk level is. And then also that kind of ties into your philosophy. I had some people tell me, Harold, I don't need you swinging for the fences. I only want 5% a year. I'm comfortable with that. I just don't want to see my account go up and down. More and more people are telling me that now. And that's okay. What happened? They had a change in their philosophy. But I say also, okay, it means you can't spend as much in the future. If you don't take the risk now, when the market is down, it means in the future, you can't spend as much. And you got to look at inflation, you got to look at buying power. You got to look at all of these different things when you begin to make decisions about your finances. And so right now for me, I've had a change in my philosophy of wealth. And later on, I'll share with you that change, that little nuance, that little adjustment that I made that has me feeling a lot different today than I felt a week ago or 10 days ago or a month ago. I feel very different. There's something different about how I feel now about things. And it's something different about my perspective. And this little business trip I took was a big step for me in changing my philosophy of wealth and how I think about things. And I'll share this with you folks in another show. But I'm also working on, like I said, is it a mind thing or is it a money thing? Is it a mind thing, a psychological thing, or is it a money thing, or is it both? And when I get that lined up, I'll share with you folks and let you know what it is. But again, not my thing to piss you off today. I want to encourage you, and I want you to go and explore how you think about things. I want you to explore your philosophy of wealth. And sometimes people have a minimalist kind of thought process. They don't need a lot, which is fine. But then at the same time, then you got to stay in your lane and live your life a certain kind of way. And if you ever venture outside of that, you got to make sure that you've had a change in your philosophy. Otherwise, you're not going to match. It's not going to go well for you. And you're going to be upset. You're going to be unhappy. And so I just wanted to share with you that. Not my goal to tell you how to think, but I am an investment professional. I am a financial advisor. My goal is to help you sniff out these things that are going to be detrimental to you and then to help you make those adjustments. And so if you think you need a change in your philosophy, you want to do things a little differently, then let me know. Click in my show notes and sit down with me. However, once you make a change in your philosophy, it's going to be hard to go back. And it's going to require you to hang around like-minded people. It's going to require you to maybe let some relationships go. And that's going to be painful. And I'm going to do a show one day titled, What Are You Willing to Give Up to Go Up? Okay? What are you willing to give up to go up? Or what are you willing to give up to get up? So thanks for listening today. I enjoy sharing this with you folks and just kind of getting it out there. Hope you have a fantastic week or rest of the day whenever you're listening to the show. And until next time, everybody, 1, 2, 3, let's get it.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.